Welcome to the Train Like a King podcast, dedicated to all things paddling, designed to help paddlers of all levels get motivated to get out on the water. Tune in, grab your paddle, and let's train like a king. Kia ora guys, and welcome back to another Train Like a King podcast episode. On this episode, I want to talk about my first molokai solo and the harsh lesson that I learned in this race. So I'm going to describe this race, the molokai solo, and I'm going to talk about some of the struggles I went through in my first one and some stories behind it. So the Molokai Channel, the piece of water between the island of Molokai and Oahu, is an infamous channel, not just for outrigger canoeing, wa'a, but also for many paddle sports, surf ski, prone, stand up, even other sports like, I guess, sailing, even more modern sports like, what do you call it, foiling, swimming, I guess. This channel sees a lot of action, and basically it's a really can be a really brutal channel because it's open ocean water where you've got elements of wind, current, waves, I guess, navigating different lines and in the heat and competition. So it's a very infamous channel. I don't know a lot of the history behind the Molokai channel, but there is a lot of history out there. So if you want to learn more, go and research about it. But anyway, it is the Molokai solo that I want to talk about is because there's more than one. There's the Pa'a Hawaii solo, who is run by Manny Kulukalani, I believe. And then there also is another Molokai Challenge, which is run by, I believe, the Foties, and it's sponsored by Maui Gym. So there's two, I guess, channel crossings there. These are single events. This is not including the 6-man events that happen later on in the year. But the channel solo crossings usually happen pretty early on in the months of May. But I'm going to be referring to the Pa'a Hawaii solo that's run by Manny Kulukalani, because you often get a lot of the Tahitians and internationals that come to compete in this race. And it's these races are kind of considered the OC1 World Championships. So when I say OC1, that means Rutted Canoe Championships. Like, because there's not really a World Championships for ruddered canoes under the IVF Federation, etc., or the official World Champs, because those are all on rudderless. So I would agree that it is a World Championship event, because it's one of those races that every OC1 paddler would like to do and would like to win. Similar to the Te Ai Tour of Tahiti, the Molokai Solo is their version of the Aito. And so what it is a 52-kilometer race from Molokai to Oahu. I'm not sure what that is in miles. Sorry to all the Americans listening. 52 kilometers is definitely a long race in the world of I think 30 kilometers is probably a good racing distance, and then when you're pushing past the 30-kilometer mark, then you're tapping into that kind of, in running terms, you're tapping into marathon or longer kind of races, because it's taking us beyond the 3-hour mark, which requires a different type of race strategy. So anyway, My first solo was in 2015, and I've always spoken about like my first proper year training was 2013. So my first proper training was in 2013, and so 2 years of solid training and competing in Tahiti, and I decided to go over. Then I decided to go over to Hawaii to compete in my first molokai solo, 2015. This is, and I've got some funny stories about this. So you know, when I first decided to go to Hawaii to do this race, I arrived in Oahu, and thankfully I stayed with Denise Darvel Chang and her family, and I remember being on catching my flight over the morning of the race for the Molokai Solo, and for anyone that's ever, caught a plane trip to Molokai or any of the outer islands, a lot of the time they're quite small planes. There's only like 8 people in the flight, maybe 10. Uh, and I happened to be on the same flight as Travis Grant, and I can't remember if Travis has won. He had definitely won the a channel crossing on a stand up at that point, and he later on won it in the OC1. I don't know if it was pre 2015 or post 2015 that he won his first solo, but anyway, he was on my flight, and he's a legend, especially for a new guy, new paddler like me on the scene. And I'll always remember this because the first thing that Travis Grant said to me, he asked me, "Oh, have you done the solo before?" And I said, "No, it's my first time." And he said, "Oh, the channel is gonna eat you alive." And man, how brutally honest is that, and he was right, you know. The Molokai solo channel is no easy feat, and you should never really take it lightly. And I would say I kind of did take it lightly because in my eyes, I was like, oh, I've done the Te Aito, I've done the Super Aito. How hard could this one race be? Um, so to give a bit of context, I hadn't really pedaled a lot of OC1 prior to this. The OC1 was pretty new to me, but I thought, hey, it's got a rudder, and I know how to kind of go all right in a rudderless. So surely this has got to be easy. And turns out it's it's not that straightforward. Anyway, I was really well trained for this event, so I actually did a lot of mileage. And here's probably my first proper big mistake in my pedaling career is when I was back home in New Zealand training for this event. I approached my university lecturer at the time who had some involvement with Olympic rowers, and I showed him my training plan. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. What do I need to do, to be the best I can be? And he came back to me and he said, "Oh, you basically need to be doing double what you're doing." And I was already doing over 100 kilometers a week. And after speaking with him, I came away with a plan that had 210 kilometers in 1 week. However, how things didn't quite cross over because obviously, like I said, he was a rowing coach and dealing with athletes that were in rowing skits, which travel a lot faster on over. Their average speed is a lot faster than Va'a, so they can cover more distance than a Va'a can in the same amount of time. So that's the mistake the first mistake I did is that I ended up doing a lot more mileage than I should have. And to be honest, I only lasted less than 10 weeks on that plan, trying to hit 200 plus kilometers before I got an overuse injury on my forearm. And so that, you know, that just goes to show that, you know, lots and lots of mileage isn't always key. You got to find that balance. I think probably part of it was that I jumped from 100 to 200 straight away. And uh, it was pretty difficult time. I was at university, and like in order to get 200 kilometers in a week, it was tough. Like Monday morning, I would do 30 kilometers, and then I'd come back in the afternoon and do 10 or 20. Tuesday, I'll do 20 kilometers in the morning and come back and do 10 in the afternoon. And then I'd just kind of repeat that uh, throughout the week until I got 200 kilometers. And it was ridiculous because the quality that I was doing was terrible. I was every training, I was tired and sluggish and lethargic. I was staying with my cousin Turanga at the time, and he'll tell you I was just any chance I could, I was just sleeping, and man, it was the pure definition of overtraining. Um, but it also taught me, it taught me, what's basically kind of possible. I push those limits, and you kind of get to understand your limits, and then you kind of come back down and find what works best. So that was the first mistake, was that I did way too much mileage in preparation for this race, because I thought the more mileage, the better. But that wasn't necessarily the case. And so not only did I go into the Molokai solo very, I would say, very lightweight and skinny, I didn't have the muscle and just the general strength, I would say, to get through such a long race, because I've already taxed my system so much. It's not going to actually help you to race faster. It's, you know, you don't want to be able to just prove that you can paddle 52 kilometers, but you want to be able to do it in a healthy manner and a fast manner. Which brings me to my second mistake, is that I didn't know how to surf properly. And so at the beginning of my race, I just went out like I would race any other race in Tahiti, which, maximum 28 kilometers. Super Aito might be a little bit more, but I started as if I was racing a short race and not 52 kilometers. And that alone is a big no-no, because it's, if you race like normally, like for a 30 kilometer, by the time you get to that 30 kilometers, you're going to really struggle for that last 22, especially if you expended most of your energy prior to that. And that's what I kind of did. And because I lack the experience in the surf, I remember trying to like chase Danny Ching, who had a mean start. I remember he had a really good start 2015. And I remember just trying to even just stay with him, but I couldn't, because I didn't know how to surf. And then I wound up just overworking for those first 2 hours, like constantly overworking. Didn't let the canoe do the work. And I ended up, and this is about in the 2 hour mark, I ran into the biggest cramps I have ever had in my life. And it was in my upper forearm in front of my elbow. Like that joint is where I was cramping really bad. And this was only barely even halfway through the race. And a lot of that is tied to poor race strategy. So going out too hard and just trying to catch everything with little to no efficiency, but also not planning my nutrition that well. Um, so I didn't have the best plan in place. I think I drank Gatorade from Costco. I probably didn't have any electrolytes. Uh, no proper branded electrolytes anyway. And yeah, I basically hit the wall at the halfway mark, which ended up leading me to crawling to the finish line. I still finished, but my cramps were that bad that I could barely bend my arms. So I had to keep them really straight the whole time. And I was doing this real short looking stroke. It was terrible. And people were passing me. And um, yeah, it was funny because I don't know why, but people were predicting that I was going to finish in the top five. I remember they had these polls up and people were posting, oh, I think Rete or Steve or Kevin's going to be here or whatever. And for some reason, I was in like the top five, top 10 predictions. But that was sorry to let you guys down. But that was, yeah. And that's the reality of racing a race like this that's so long that you've never done, if you've never done it before. It's a different type of preparation. Like, for one, you need you need to understand the OC1. You need to understand surfing, and you need to understand race, nutrition, strategies, etc. And that comes with time. It's easy for, say, the Tahitians to convert because they do a lot of similar races with the Hawaii Nui, with the Aitor, um, Super Aitor. Especially, I would say the Hawaii Nui is probably the biggest um, reason why they would understand a race like the Molokai Solo, because let's say take the last leg of the Hawaii Nui, for example. It's 56 kilometers and it's iron, so no changes. So as a team, say within Shell or even when I was with Paddling Connection, you start learning how to drink right and how to to replenish your electrolytes and stuff like that. Like, we drank so much in Paddling Connection. We changed our water pack so many times throughout that race. Whereas when I did the solo, this was pre Paddling Connection. So I'd never really raced the race this long or practiced any nutrition stuff. So, and here's a crazy thing is that I actually ran out of water, and my support boat at the time, it was, yeah, I ran out of water and Gatorade on the boat. And there was even moments where my support boat refused to give me water for some reason. They said, "Oh, he's got his water pack. He'll be all right." But for anyone that has done long distance racing, sometimes you just crave pure water, like cold water, and you might have a uh, sugary solution in your drink system, but you just get sick of it. Like, all you want is water. And yeah, my support boat refused to come in and do me a drop because they knew I already had a pack, and I was like, oh, okay. But anyway, eventually later on down the course, I um did run out of Gatorade and stuff like that, and the only thing that was left on the boat was this chocolate milk that was not normal milk; it was coconut milk. And I was that desperate to get some energy because I was already had hit a wall, and I'm just trying to get to the finish now. I drank this um, chocolate milk, and it made me sick. Like, it made me physically sick. So not only was I fatigued, hit the wall, cramping, but I drank this drink that made me feel sick, completely sick. So yeah, for anyone looking to do the Molokai solo, make sure you got a good nutrition plan planned out. Talk to someone that's done it before. And I mean, I did talk to people who have done it before. Mario was telling me, like, bro, you need to drink and eat every 15 minutes type thing. And I kind of brushed it off and like, I'll be all right. And I've seen a lot of paddlers, top paddlers in their own, you know, like say countries and that, and go over and do this race. And yeah, they get kind of, like Travis Grant said, you get chewing up and spat out when you're first solo. It's kind of just inevitable. Funny thing is, I haven't actually done a solo since. So this year, 2023, will hopefully mark my second solo, and I plan on doing things a lot better, a lot smarter. Train smart, eat smart, sleep smart. So yeah, I managed to finish the race, but I remember just being super fatigued and tired. But that didn't stop me going out for a V1 downwind the next day with Danny Ching. So if anyone has seen that video of me and Danny Ching chopping changing on the stand up in the V1, that was the day after Molokai. And there's a reason why I'm so pale in that video, and I think it's because I was just so denourished from the race the day before. And yeah, I'm surprised I could even get out there and pedal, really. So again, so yeah, that's the Molokai solo. The toughest lesson I learned. So just to sum up this episode, basically, like, I overtrained for the event. I did way too much mileage and I got injured. I came into the race underprepared in terms of not understanding OC1 or surfing. I didn't have a race strategy. I didn't have a nutrition strategy that was good enough to sustain such a long race. And yeah, those were huge lessons that I learned. And how was I going to tie this episode up? I hold on for a second. I just left my brain. So yeah, those were the key lessons learned for this race. However, here's the bright side. I'll finish on this. The bright side, or the silver lining to this, was that I went back home to New Zealand and realized I learned from all these mistakes. I was like, damn it, I did way too much mileage. I don't need to do that again. I need better nutrition strategies, and I just need to improve my surfing and stuff like that. So this is May 2015 when I made these mistakes. But I went home and I thought about them, and it wasn't too long after that. So May, June, July. So a couple of months later was the TI Tour and subsequently the Super I Tour. And if you remember from previous episodes, I've talked about this a lot. My first top 10 finish was that year, 2015. The same year that I had massive mistakes was the same year that I had really good success. So part of it, I believe, was the fact that I learned from those things. But I almost believe that if I didn't do a lot of the high mileage that I did early on in the year, I wouldn't have had such success later on. So there is a good time to put in the mileage, but there's also a good time to reduce that mileage, taper, and really be healthy for your big events. So I'll leave it with that one. Good luck to anyone competing in the Molokai Solo this year, and we'll see you there. Thank you for listening to another episode on the Train Like a King podcast. Check out trainlikeaking.com for training plans, merchandise, and coaching opportunities. If you haven't already, give us a follow so you don't miss another episode. Catch you on the next one.